I'll post a response, Gary, not because I have any delusions that I might change your mind, because you've all obviously already decided what you believe. Uh, you're basically a believer in the religion of Darwinism, which doesn't have much to do with Darwin per se. Uh, it has more to do with people that have taken certain aspects of Darwin's theories and totalized them and turned natural selection and random variation into the only acceptable way for understanding anything that we observe in the biological world. Um, Fortunately, that's not how science works, and the real scientists are uh, developing their understanding, progressing, evolving, in effect, because they continue to open up new lines of inquiry, ask new questions, and that's good. And I like to keep my belief system open such that it can account for the new findings which science reveals. So, the only one being religious and dogmatic here is you, Gary. You're refusing to learn about new science, and that's all it comes down to. You're ignorant about what epigenetics actually is, and you know, I can't compel you to do the research because, as I already said, you've already decided what you believe. Um, but I'll try. If not for your sake, Gary, then for anybody that doesn't know about epigenetics, it's not just about damage being inherited because of cosmic rays or something. That is not epigenetics. That cosmic rays alter the DNA sequence, and that's inherited. Yeah, but that's not epigenetics. Epigenetics is when the DNA stays the same in the next generation, but certain traits are inherited because of certain non-genetic factors. The proteins that structure the DNA are changed, and when cells divide, that change in structure, those different proteins, regulated proteins, are carried with that cell division, and it alters the organism on a non-genetic level. Um, this is how multicellular organisms develop, how they grow. Every cell in your body has the exact same genetic sequence, but every cell in your body, or at least around 250, there are 250 types of cell that perform completely different functions, have completely different structures, all because of epigenetic influences. These aren't damaging influences. These are very, organized influences, beneficial influences. Um, and you're right that this doesn't have much to do with Darwin. Darwin offered one possible mechanism which does play a role in uh, evolution, but there are other mechanisms which play a role, and we're finding possibly even a larger role than natural selection. So, yeah, it doesn't have much to do with Darwin. It's adding to Darwin. Darwin isn't all of a sudden irrelevant or wrong, just like Newton isn't wrong uh, because of Einstein's theory. It's just that the context of Newton's physical equations are altered because Einstein found more all encompassing equations. And that's what's going on. Science is shifting paradigms. That's how science works. And you can continue to worship 150-year-old ideas, and nobody's going to stop you. But just be aware that it's not science, it's religion, Gary. You're the one being religious, not me. Um, and as far as atoms being conscious, I'll agree. That's a bad way of wording it, because it's not like atoms are making decisions and planning their day tomorrow in advance or anything. Uh, the idea, though, is that our understanding of matter as just this inert stuff directed by these transcendental physical laws, as Newton supposed, is no longer tenable. It's no longer correct. It's a drastic oversimplification that prevents us from understanding how matter could ever uh, transform into living organisms, and how living organisms could ever have an interior experience of being an organism. In order to understand how that could happen, we need to drastically reevaluate what we mean by matter. And so what I think it requires is that we see matter as having an inside. Just as it has an exterior surface which collides with other exterior surfaces, it has an interior um, experience, and it can learn. It has memory, not in the sense, the deeper, more complex sense that living organisms with nervous systems and human beings have with language and so forth, but in a very primordial sense. And this is certainly still fringe science, not epigenetics and complexity theory. That's no longer fringe. That's quickly becoming mainstream and well accepted by all scientists. But pan-experientialism, the idea that the material world has an inside, that is, more of a philosophical idea. It's not even, it has nothing to do with science so much as it is an interpretation of the universe that human beings live in based on science. And materialism is no longer, the kind of materialism that says matter is just this inert stuff directed by transcendental laws that never change. That is pretty much wrong. We can show that that's wrong. If you believe in the Big Bang cosmology, physical laws are always evolving. Matter is constantly transforming. So it's just, we have to adapt our worldview, our ontology, our way of experiencing reality. We have to adapt to what the scientific evidence has shown us, because the evidence no longer supports the world, the mechanical world that Newton and Descartes and even Darwin still lived in. We live in a different world now. And my struggle to come up with a coherent philosophy in light of the scientific evidence is it's a difficult struggle, because the words aren't there yet, and I'm trying to use words that we've used in the past to mean something different. I'm trying to use those words in novel ways, and it's frustrating because people don't understand exactly what I'm trying to say. But I'll continue to struggle with it because I think it's important. But no one's saying Darwin isn't valid. We're just saying he didn't have the whole picture, and even he admitted that. It's kind of like how Jesus, preached all about love and cooperation with your neighbor, and trusting nature to provide for you and so forth. And then the Catholic Church comes along and bases a religion on Jesus's teachings that results in the Inquisition and all these terrible things. Something similar has happened with Darwin, I think. He repeatedly expressed in his book that natural selection is by no means the be-all and end-all of why evolution progresses, and we should distinguish between evolution, which is the idea that all organisms derive from a common ancestor, and Darwin's specific theory, which was an attempt to account for, how this evolution occurs. That evolution is a reality, is not denied by anybody. Even the intelligent designers agree that evolution has occurred. The creationists don't. But the intelligent designers say it has occurred. The Earth is 4.5, or life is 3.5, around there, billion years old. What they want to say, though, is that it was designed to progress this way by an intelligent being of some kind. I'm not an intelligent designer. I'm certainly not a creationist. I just recognize that science has moved beyond Darwin's theory. It hasn't proven Darwin wrong. It's just moved beyond it. It's added to Darwin to such a degree that the worldview that Darwin espoused based on his theory is no longer relevant. So, do some research, Gary. You don't know what you're talking about. You really don't. You're just screaming because you're angry that people are transitioning to, into a paradigm, into a view of the world that makes you uncomfortable. Well, you have the right to be uncomfortable with it, but at least understand what you're arguing against, because right now you don't. You're not arguing against epigenetics. You're arguing against Lamarckism or some other idea, and trying to paint us all as phantasmagoricals when we're not. So do some research.